The question is it intended to review the ages at which members of the Defence Forces have to retire, particularly taking into account specialist skills that have been required by many of them during their careers, and the type of positions that these people might hold that could be capably done by people over 50 years of age?
And yes is the answer to that, Deputy. And as I said earlier, that historically military life, because it placed unique demands on individuals, and that it was considered that members of the Defence Forces personnel had to be prepared to meet the challenges of all military operations. So the compulsory retirement ages for ranks in the Department of Defence Forces were and are considerably lower than in other employments. And the Public Service Pay Commission, in their report on recruitment and retention in the Department of Defence Force in 2019, included in their recommendations they need to consider options to tackle barriers to extended participation in the Permanent Defence Force. A joint civil-military review was subsequently completed in 2021. The report of the review group made a number of recommendations for extended service limits across a number of ranks in the Defence Forces. As current pension arrangements for personnel enlisted to the Permanent Defence Force on or after the 1st of January 1994 are based on date of entry to the Defence Forces, any proposals to amend the length of service requires the approval of the Minister for Public Expenditure, as these are their impacts on accrued pension liabilities. In December of 2021, the Minister for Public Expenditure agreed to allow for an extended service limit for privates and corporals recruited post 1st of January 1994 to serve beyond the 21-year service limit that existed before that date, up to a revised service limit of 50 years of age, subject to them meeting certain criteria, including medical and fitness standards. An interim arrangement was also agreed to allow for the continuance in service of sergeants in the Permanent Defence Force who were due to be retired on age grounds at the end of 2022. Those sergeants who were recruited since the 1st of January 1994 and would be due to retire on the basis of mandatory retirement age in 2022 and 23 will not be required to do so until the end of 2024. The fast accrual pension terms will continue for those additional years. The Department for Public Expenditure have established an interdepartmental working group to consider mandatory retirement ages and service limits for public service groups who have fast accrual occupational pension arrangements. A number of meetings of this working group, of which the Department of Defence is a member, have taken place to date. The recommendations from the joint civil-military review of mandatory retirement ages of all ranks in the Permanent Defence Force are being considered as part of the work of this group. There are clear staffing challenges across the Defence Forces. Compulsory retirement ages and service limits in the Defence Forces are one of the factors impacting manpower policy, which has to be balanced against the operational requirements of the Defence Forces. I have discussed this matter recently with the Minister for Public Expenditure. Options for interim measures pending the outcome of the work of the interdepartmental group are now being considered.
This is groups, or there are two speakers. Éamon Ó Cuív.
Yeah. Minister, I think it's well recognised that there's a shortage of personnel. And personnel used to be allowed to stay in the Defence Forces until they were 60 years of age. It changed in 1994. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that all the personnel would be allowed to remain, because I do understand that depending on your role in the Defence Forces. But if we take, for example, a paramedic has to retire, depending on their rank, at 50 years of age. But they could the following day go to the HSE or to the National Ambulance Service and get a job and continue to work, doing fairly similar work, to 66 years of age. It seems anomalous, and that you're losing very skilled personnel that might want to stay. I don't know if they do or they don't. Just because there's an arbitrary there that doesn't look at the skills level and the particular skills and the physical attributes needed for those skills.
First of all, I accept the principle that Deputy Ó Cuív and Deputy Murko have put forward here, and other deputies, Fitzpatrick, earlier. And to be fair, I outlined in the reply that a significant move was made some time ago in respect of those on 21-year service, and in terms of going to 50 years of age. In my view, I accept the basic principle that the world has changed. Ireland has gained 25 years in lifespan, Irish people, compared to 1922. And there has been a dramatic improvement in lifespan in the last 20 years, in terms of cardiac, in terms of disease and survival and so on. And I've seen 50-year-olds who are fitter than 25-year-olds. Just not in here. There's a few in here too. I don't know.
The clock is running. The clock
So
is
the point
running.
I'm making is that we have to apply that to the Defence Forces. There are wider issues in terms of fast accrual pension is the core of it. I think we can resolve those because we know, and the Deputy's officer will be the very first, if a move is made here, you'll be the very first to come back and say, what about over here? This group deserves a similar treatment and so on. So that's why public expenditure are dealing with that. But in the interim, yes, we're trying to work through, can we do some interim measures?
Éamon Ó Cuív.
Maybe you could give more clarification on timelines, because on timelines, I do accept that there's a process to be gone through, and I do accept that you always have in the public service knock-ons and so on. But on the other hand, it's an issue that needs to be tackled. So are we talking about, an interim thing this year and long-term within a full year? Or what kind of timelines are we talking about? Because things seem to get lost in the system and get gummed up and just be always going to happen, and you get this word soon that's abused and used. So maybe you could give some indications of the finite timelines that could be involved here. And if it is 18 months, tell us that.
In terms of timeline, the Minister for Public Expenditure is very clear that the interdepartmental group is not a mechanism for allowing something to be buried or whatever, but needs to be resolved quickly. And the interim measures I'm talking within, certainly within a much shorter time frame.
Margaret.